Let's cross live now to a senior researcher at the Reichman University in Israel, Ely Karmon, who's joining us here on RT International. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Karmon. Thank you very much for joining us on the program here. I know you were just listening just now to Maria Fanoshna's report of Sderot, which much of Sderot is now a bit of a ghost town these days. No surprise, a lot of the inhabitants fled in the wake of the Hamas militant attacks in that region. I wanted to ask you, just off the top of your head, right now, the goals and the objectives of Israel in this operation in Gaza, how would you assess the operation so far? Has it been a success, do you think?
Good afternoon. If you heard the story about the ghost house, ghost town, you understand why the decision of the Israeli government is to destroy the military power of Hamas so that he cannot represent a threat to our population in the future, not near future, like in the past, for always. Now, the operation is going according to plan. It is going slowly because there is still civilian population in especially in Gaza City, because Hamas is not permitting part of this population going south in more secure places, and also because we want to defend our soldiers against the traps that the Hamas prepared, especially the underground tunnels, which are a huge network of 400, 500 kilometers. I hope that everybody saw that billions of dollars were invested in this kind of network and in the weapons to fire against Israel, but not in the construction of good life for the Gazan people.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. We understand there are reportedly hundreds of these underground tunnels, not just in Gaza, but as we learned on October the 7th, they spread under the border and go into Israel as well. We've also seen this footage online of the alleged fighters of the Al-Qassam Brigade using anti-tank weapons against Israeli armored vehicles and Israeli tanks during, I guess, a ground operation by the IDF. I wanted to ask you, obviously, as the military operation does continue, the response around the world, Mr. Karmon, it gets louder and louder, it does seem. Do you see any effect from what's happening right now on the relationship between Israel and other professional partners in the region and around the world? Do you think Israel has all the support that it wants and needs?
I would like, first of all, to say that we are very disappointed, very sad that Russia did not condemn the atrocities produced by Hamas in those 24 hours. Nothing of it. On the contrary, you invited the Hamas high-level delegation to visit Moscow and to arrange the liberation of some of probably your kidnapped people, 8 people or something like this. We have a problem with the international community because of the clear destruction of the infrastructure, civilian infrastructure. But this is not the first time. It is very known for the last 15 years, every 3-4 years, Hamas organized such kind of operations that provoked our reaction. And in these operations, we had to fight against an organization that used the tunnels and the civilians as shields. And this is the problem that we have for so many years. And nobody takes in consideration this situation. I will tell you some stories, for instance. We were accused to attack ambulances. We know, by the way, not from today, that they are using ambulances for terrorist passage from one point to the other. We heard from American sources that they tried to use ambulances to smuggle people from southern Gaza to Egypt because they wanted to flee from the front. So we know also that the big hospitals represent practically a shield to underground huge command centers. And from there, the leadership is moving their forces, which still are active, unfortunately, and they are trying to use again this kind of shield of the hospitals in order to...
This is certainly being said by the Israeli leadership. Mr. Karmon, I do apologize for interrupting you, but you're absolutely right. This is being said by the Israeli leadership. that human shields, civilian shields have been used. There are allegations that diesel fuel was being hidden or stored under some hospitals. Maybe weapons were being stored near refugee camps. There's a lot of allegations, frankly, going back and forth. Yeah.
The irony is that the bunker, the huge bunker under Al-Shifa hospital, the biggest hospital, was built by Israel in the 70s. And we know exactly for what it is used. We built, by the way, also the part of the hospital. And we know exactly what happens there. So when it's the Hamas is asking for fuel, especially for the hospitals, we know very well that they are using this fuel in order to manage the generators and the electricity, which keeps them alive in the tunnels. So it's a very tricky situation.
It's a very tricky situation.
Catch-22 situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fair comment as well. I just wanted to bring you up briefly when you talked about your disappointment with Russia for hosting some members of Hamas who came to Moscow. Obviously, as you understand, there are all sorts of peace negotiations underway. As you said as well, there are Russian hostages that Moscow is trying to get freed from captivity in Gaza. But as I'm sure you also know, Mr. Karmon, that Russia proposed a peace plan a couple of weeks ago at the United Nations to bring this to a peaceful resolution, the war in Gaza, and that resolution was rejected by the UK and the United States. What is the Israeli public, Mr. Karmon, what's the Israeli public, how are they reacting now to this continued violence in Gaza? Is everybody on the same side in Israel? They all support Netanyahu, they support the destruction of Gaza, or is there any dissension among Israelis with the continued military operation there?
I would say that the Russian resolution, which asked for a ceasefire exactly after the beginning of the terrorist attack, again, which was not condemned by your leadership, unfortunately. So we cannot stop now and give Hamas the liberty to continue to act against us, to prepare or to smuggle outside their leadership. And our population is fiercely against Hamas, supports the government in the destruction of this infrastructure. There are, by the way, some of the more radical elements in the public opinion, I would say, that are even more, I would say, anger than the government, but in all, I think 95% of the population is supporting the government for a tough policy, because they understand that we cannot return to these cities, to these villages, not only in the south, by the way, also in the north, where the Hezbollah is trying to challenge us. At this moment, only on the low key, but they will probably try to be more aggressive there. So we cannot ensure for our population the survival of these territories on our border and survival of Israel in the region. If you don't deter, we don't stop these forces of destruction.
All right, Ely Karmon, the senior researcher at the Reichman University in Israel, joining us live here on RT International. A very interesting commentary. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.